After a very long day from the previous day, as Jesse and Misty are still trying to recover from the Team Magma event and trying to stop them from pretty much reactivating the volcano, which could have left the whole city in great danger, but luckily they managed to stop them. And right now, Jasmine is trying to get her recent, very rebellious Pokemon back in control, and it doesn't as Fluffy isn't dealing well with Jasmine's new way of trying to do her own training, trying to get the right painting Pokemon a bit more control. But unfortunately for the girl, the Flappy seems the response from it seems to be very angered and to the point where Jasmine has to keep it in a Pokeball practically the whole day just to make the Pokemon cool off. It seems like it seems like the electric Pokemon still wants to go on a rampage, which kind of forces Jasmine to use Onyx as a bodyguard to get the Pokemon in check. And as Jasmine only sends a furry not for training than that the electric Pokemon expected, only sometimes just to feed it and send it back in the Pokeball, as Jasmine is feeling a bit in danger from the electric Pokemon and pretty much considering that if she even is the right trainer to handle this Pokemon. But for right now, Jasmine doesn't seem to worry about it quite now as she's trying to stir red has seems to barge in the room and Misty is pretty much grabbing Jasmine by the arm and exciting to go on this fishing Pokemon event where all best water Pokemons around the city is getting up one place to enter the fishing tournament and Jasmine decides to go first because he just wants to take that opportunity to find the right position. But as Jasmine tries to push Misty aside, as Misty seems to bite back as it's pointing out that Jasmine is trying doesn't have anything better to do and just being a lazy trainer. And this remark kinda hits Jasmine quite hard that she isn't too used to being called a lazy one of the two, as she is practically the most talented of the two, and because she doesn't want that fact to give Misty the wrong way, as Jasmine angrily just grabs Misty instead and goes on the trip instead, as Misty's taunting seems to work, and somehow Jasmine is thinking to herself, how did Misty got herself in this situation, as the two seems to be on a Pokemon fishing tournament, seeming like, as all of the trainer has an opportunity to capture any rare Pokemon within the ocean, and Misty has been practicing for a long time for her best throwing rod as the two girls manage to guard on a small boat. As Jasmine is pointing out, this is pretty much making her uncomfortable, as unlike the other boat when they on the ocean, that one is seems to be at least quite big, while this one is actually quite small. And it's not even sure some of her Pokemon could even fit, and not wanting to remember her angered Pokemon as Misty just clearly calms Jasmine down, pointing that she will do the most of the battling. And once the opportunity begins to present herself as Misty as an opportunity, as equally could say a very Pokemon seems to be a Corsola, and wanting another water Pokemon to her Flora. So, as Messi seems to stand along with Tobago, having a grass type should be a good advantage, but unfortunately as the two water seems to fight on top of the water, and unfortunately for the two girls, there seems to crop up a storm as the boat seems to shake rapidly as the storm has caught up the two girls, which unfortunately sends off in depths of the ocean. And unfortunately for Jasmine seems to go deep in the ocean, while likely Lamy seems to be more worried about Mercy and kinda wishes that he had enough time to get Jasmine, but for prioritizing her own training, as Lamy seemingly captures Misty in the far depths of a different island entirely. As we quickly stop her perspective as Jasmine desperately tries to swim back up. Unfortunately, because of of a lack of water type on her team, forcing her to quickly jump. But unexpectedly, a Pokemon that Misty has been previously trying to capture is being suddenly being saved by the same Pokemon as the Corsair seems to save Jasmine and manage to get her on shore. And Jasmine is almost quite shell-shocked that she in fact did almost drown, and she is quite grateful for Corsair here. As Messi finally wakes up, realizing that she was caught up from the huge thunderstorm, but luckily Lamre was there to able to save her from the huge rain, and she is quite thankful that Lamre pretty much saved her, and Lamre taking the compliment from her trainer, but Lamre also felt pretty down as Messi could notice something, and Misty being very close to a Pokemon, she could tell that Lamre is still bothered. In a matter of fact, she can understand that Lame couldn't save Jasmine and felt pretty bad, but Missy pretty much puts her head, patting her head, ensuring that Lame didn't do anything too wrong. And Misty knows that Jasmine is a very capable trainer. She knows for a fact that Jasmine can save herself, hopefully doubting herself a little, but not saying out loud for the for Lamre's sake. But as Misty and Lamre looks around the island, seems to be quite desolated in a jungle forest, and wanting to find a safe haven as both trainer goes deep within the forest, trying to find anything to be some sort of safe spot for both of them. But unfortunately for Misty and her Pokemon Lamre, they also are quite hungry because they forgot to eat breakfast, and they're right now feeling quite a bit hungry, but luckily they managed to find some overgrown berries, and Messi seems to know not there may not be a lot of Pokemons here, but it doesn't to be too worried about Lame as she just begins to eat all the berries around it. As Messi she just simply joins in, but unfortunately one Pokemon in particular, once it returns back from a casual walk and noticing it's pretty much his food are being eaten by two strangers, and this Pokemon just simply jumps out with the power of a thunder shock, shocking both trainer. As Messi looks, this seems to be a electric Pokemon, but Messi could tell this Pokemon seems to be very aquatic, and she could tell this Pokemon just is a water but just using electric type, as the Pokemon just spoke it's very loud, very trying to intimidate both of them to get off. Seems to be the Pokemon Chinchou, and right now this Pokemon seems to be in a very rushy mood as it tries to get the True from scaring off, and Messi could tell this Pokemon isn't too much, hasn't met a lot of Pokemon or trainers, so it's feeling a bit timid as Lame tries to defend its trainer, but Messi quickly stops it, and Messi quickly goes to Chimchar very slowly, and this managed to calm down the little Pokemon down. And after a pat on the head, as Chinchino is actually feeling quite alike, and it's beginning to like this trainer, and feeling a bit bad that it just sucks the two, as it just simply gives both of them its food that has been too much, as Chinchai is just being territorial, and Misty and Lami are quite thankful. And after a day sorts of as Misty returns Lombre back to Pokemon and trying to look around the island, but surprisingly she noticed that Chinchina seems to following her, and remembering the last time that her first capture Alame did follow her, and Misty, and this also happened with Mudkip. It seems like Misty seems to have a very unique way of bonding water type Pokemon, as Misty could tell Chinchino wants to follow her because Chinchino feels pretty lonely because not a lot of Pokemon are on his island, feeling the Pokemon quite lonely in fact. And Misty kinda feels bad and she has an idea if she wants to come with her, and as Chincha seems to like the idea so much that it quickly goes to Misty's Pokeball and pretty much captures itself for her, leaving Misty to have a fifth member on her body, leaving her quite happy. As Kosala has been pretty much taking care of Jasmine as she was been unconscious the whole time, as Jasmine is being quite grateful to the water Pokemon. But it seems like Jasmine is a bit injured than expected as her knees seems to be quite injured and kinda struggles to stand upright. And unexpectedly Kosala has treated her as a caregiver and pretty much is taking care of Jasmine and pretty much a very motherly figure, and this is quite unexpected for Jasmine particularly. And Jasmine is quite thankful to Corsora's company, even to the point where Corsola is feeding Jasmine some berries, as Jasmine is quite appreciated, and knowing that she might be staying this island for a few more days than expected, but after a day or so, Jasmine can comfortably stand up without falling with the help of Corsola. And as Corsa and Jasmine are beginning to form a bond, as Corsa is pretty much taking care of Jasmine, as Corsa sees Jasmine as a hot child that needs to be taken care of. And this is an unexpected as Corsa doesn't even leave Jasmine's side and constantly wants to be at her side. And this gets the two of them to get so close as Corsa wants to join Jasmine's party, as Corsa just pops the Pokeball and gets into it as she has become the fourth member on Jasmine's team to her very unexpected choice. But regardless, she is quite thankful. And after for some time now, as Jasmine searched all the island and currently getting worried that she might not even see Misty, but thankfully Misty it seems to be as Misty herself is trying to look over the island and thankfully the two finally meet, and Misty seems to see the same Corsa that it previously tried to capture, but unexpectedly as Misty seems to wanting to greet the Pokemon, Corsa just simply turns to Jasmine and trying to hide up behind her legs, making a big chuck on Jasmine, but that I think Corsa doesn't like Misty, which kind of bums Misty out. But the two girls needs to figure out how to get off the island. But luckily enough, as Misty has a few water Pokemon on her side, which they should able to carry them off from this deserted island. And after some encouragement from Jasmine, as she's not too comfortable in the water, knowing for a fact that she specializes on rock type, and Jasmine seems to understanding why rock type Pokemon doesn't seem to be too comfortable, and Jasmine kinda gets it, but she quickly puts that aside and trying to do the sake of it and trying to pretty much get off this island. And luckily they don't need to go too deep in the too far away from the deserted island, as they seem to stumble across a huge boat, as it seems like it's so large it's even tricked as an own some sort of floating island, and thankfully the crew on the ship seems to notice the two girls pretty much lost in the ocean, and the crew seems to put upon the two girls in the boat ship, and seems like the captain is pretty much treating the two trainers. And thankfully, the captain seems to be a good-hearted man in allowing the two girls to ride on the boat so that they could quickly go back to their journey's destination after staying here for a few times. This is another opportunity for the two girls to spend some time, as it seems like this huge boat does have some few famous with water bugs, leaving the two girls to basically let themselves to be lost in the environment and allowing the two girls to have some fun times. But something that caught Jazz in particular, as she could see a group of crowd watching some sort of battle. As Jasmine looks through the crowd, it seems like it's to be the trainer a few months ago, aka Steven, who has been particular fighting off this trainer particularly, but his new involved Pokemon Matang here, and it seems like Matang just puts down a very powerful Zen headbutt to a powerful Pokemon, a very powerful Harry armor, but unfortunately for the fighting Pokemon, the Metang's psychic type is simply too much for the fighting type, even though it should have some advantage, but Metang just simply outclass it with a powerful Meteor Mash, knocking the fighting type out, leaving Steven to be the strongest on the boat. And it seems like Jasmine and Steven seems to catch up, haven't seen each other for a long time, and Steven is quite surprised that Jasmine is it can see that Jasmine is getting quite strong, and it kinda encouraged for Jasmine to have a battle with Steven, but Jasmine just simply shuts this down because she can acknowledge that Mitten is way too strong of her lead, and Steven is kinda disappointed that Jasmine doesn't even bother trying her best until the redhead seems to be quite angered by Jasmine and quite furious that Jasmine isn't taking the opportunity, and Jasmine and Misty are beginning to have another huge argument until the boat review which gets attacked by pirates, and everyone seems to be quite shocked not knowing what seems to be happening. As Captain Fenton the Wild, who's leading the charge, as they pretty much let his whole crew go on the rampage, which the ship managed to dock on a huge dock, forced it to stop upon, allowing the pirates to pretty much take hostage and steal any Pokemon good enough Pokemon from folks, but this doesn't get Captain Phantom's focus too far ahead because right now he knows for a fact this boat has a secret treasure that he desperately needs to capture that the captain seems to accidentally stumble upon, and that's what Phantom is about to do in allowing the pirate to go on a huge battle ranch throughout the whole boat, forcing the trainers with strong Pokemon to pretty much fight back, leaving Jasmine, Misty, and Steven to fight off the pirates, leaving Captain Fountain to his own device as he goes deeper within the ship and finding out deep within the ship, knowing that there seems to be old security guards that hasn't been really active, but doesn't too bother with him and sending out his powerful Sharpedo, using a powerful water pulse to blast through the the security and trainer and Pokemon other that they tried to stop it, but they simply couldn't take over the strong Pokemon trainer, which is Captain Phantom, and they managed to stumble upon a room that seems to be filled with Agent Octofight. And even though these things should be valuable, but Captain Falcon is too focused on this particular one thing. It seems to be a treasure of some kind, but unfortunately this treasure is guarded by a wild Pokemon that is pretty much led past this place becoming his home. It seems to be a very powerful tentacle here, and unfortunately for Cancer Falcon and the Sharpedo, and it's actually they stumbled upon a very powerful tentacle, as this tentacle seems to be a very nuisance and quite strong to the fact that it made Sharpedo even second guess and still continue out the battle, but luckily with Captain Falcon by himself managed to get Tentacle off for now at least, and managed to stumble upon the map which allow him to find the lost treasure within the ocean, and and the map does show some type of egg in the map, but unfortunately once Captain Phantom finally gets back up from the surface and accidentally meets a very powerful Pokemon with a powerful Slacking in front, and behind the Slacking seems to be a very powerful trainer in the whole boat. It seems to be Norman here, time as he knows that this is the only time of the year that him and his family could have some quality time. But of course, things like this has to get the gym leaders annoyed. But regardless, he's willing to stop this evil organization, and Captain Phantom is quite quite offended because he just prefers an opportunist trainer and trying to find the best treasure in the world, but Norman, not wanting to have full of nonsense from this guy, tried commands for Slacking to put him down with a powerful hammer arm, and Sharpedo blocks the attack as these two huge Pokemon battle on the top of the ship, leaving no trace as they destroy pretty much everything, as these two are pretty much giving them all. But unfortunately for Sharpedo, that is still battling, it's not even battling his uncomfortable environment, lack of water, meaning that it's fighting off a huge disadvantage, leaving Slacking to pretty much overpowered. But unexpectedly from both turns, it seems to be that Tentacle that seems to be the god from earlier has come back and wanting some payback because it's quite angered and getting quite aggressive to the point where Slacking is prioritizing Sharpedo to Tentacle, knowing that Tentacle is the more dangerous of the two, as Tentacle simply poisons Slacking with a poison jab and managed to get slacking in the front foot, and the two behemoth Autopo are pretty much struggling to overcome one another. But unexpectedly, as Norman could see, Captain Falcon is about to get away and wanting to end this pretty fast as commanding for slacking to a powerful crush claw. But unexpectedly, a Pokeball seems to hit Tentacool and simply Stranglecool just got sucked into the Pokeball and 1 and 2 insect, and the Tentacool seems to be caught by Misty as she quickly grants to the Pokemon, and she is quite angry at Norman that he just allowed Slacking to pretty much do too much damage to Tentacle than expected, as Norman doesn't want to waste any more time, but unfortunately it's simply a bit too late as this distraction gives a long enough for the pirates to pretty much get out of there and manage to pull out of the way from the ship, leaving Norman to be quite angry to Misty, and to the point where both trainers seems to get a huge argument until the police have arrived and they question everyone in the event, but luckily nobody seems to get too injured, but Officer J does call Misty on from interfering with the gym leader, who is pretty much trying to stop the crime from getting away, leaving Misty to be quite shocked because she didn't even know that guy was a gym leader. But she doesn't let her guard up because Norman did hurt the Tenku a bit too much, and it does give Misty just to be slapped on the wrist, and that's pretty much it. But after that event, as Misty pretty much found out that Norman is a gym leader, she's going to prove himself that no. And maybe she's going to use her new Pokemon, her new Pokemon on the gym leader. But Steven's while still here in the event, as Steven can confirm that Norman is a very strong trainer and shouldn't be taken too lightly because he even lost and he isn't too sure even now that he could still take on Norman. And after hearing what Steven just said from Norman, as Misty is feeling a bit taken off but not wanting to give up and wants to show off against Norman because she is still pretty confident her Pokemon could still take out Norman. Once Misty challenges Norman and Misty tries to send out Marstop, and realizing Misty had made a huge mistake as Norman already has slacking already sent out. Misty to herself this should be easy because once she calls out for a powerful mud shot as slacking isn't doing anything as it simply took the attack, and Misty probably thinks to herself this Pokemon is too large to move, but that's a huge mistake as once she caught out for Martin into a powerful Aqua Pulse as slacking with tremendous terrifying she managed to stood up and counter with a powerful hammer arm, which that one move managed to knock out Marshall. As Misty looks down at Marshall with sparkles in his eyes, realizing that Misty is facing another level of power as Norman just glares at Misty and just simply recalls slacking back and just simply turns away. As you can clearly see, there's the difference between us is too great. You clearly need to spend more time training while I try my best to recover from this festival and return back to my family where I'm needed. And that's where we're gonna leave the episode right there.